just me. So this is how I am. If you don't like it, then
leave.
No.
Yeah,
you can leave.
As is, okay, on the package. Boom. It's really good to know from human to human that, we all experience some form of this type of feeling. Why don't people understand that good intentions do not take away from the fact that abuse is still abuse?
Mm-hmm.
I'm so sick and tired of people hand waving bad parents as trying their best, or they're only human. Sometimes your best isn't good enough. Some people don't get the gravity of raising another life. Sometimes parents are just poo. I agree with that. I think that there's a lot of times where people get interject into my conversation when I talk about my father, and they say, well, why isn't he in your kids' lives? And I'm like, no, he's a toxic person. Why would I keep a toxic person in my life? That makes no sense to me. You're just basically asking for it. And they don't understand that, just trying your best, just because somebody meant, I guess, with good intentions to do their best, they weren't equipped to do their job. And some people are just very toxic. I don't know.
I have a similar situation with my birth mom where she has come back and apologized, and my siblings are, still communicating with her, but it's still there. Like, that person you can still tell it's there. Like, compared to my birth dad, it's very different. He's a completely different person, but that person, that anger that they hold in themselves is still there. And it's the same thing with
right, they haven't learned.
My other mom. Growing up, it was a lot about body. It was about body image was the biggest thing. And it was always it's because I'm doing the best. I'm trying to get you to understand, you need to do better with your body. You need to be this better person. You need to be this size because you want the right guy to come along. It's always, I'm doing this for you, but instead it's just, I'm tearing you down. It's not for the best. It's more of a, I'm just tearing you down as a person. I'm saying it's for the best. So it takes a long time to build up those boundaries, because if you go through your childhood without the boundaries, then you start those relationships where you're used to not having boundaries, and then they walk all over you, and then you have to create boundaries as an adult. And that is
harder.
The hardest thing.
I want to address this line because it struck me. My therapist thinks I don't want to get better because it's easier for me to stay sick. Now, I want to take that, but I want to interject that victim mentality. People who are constantly, I think I've talked to you about this years ago, about it's almost like a negative attention, like that you want to keep creating negative attention for yourself. But what is the reason for it?
Because you at least get attention. Positive attention. Say you have the good child that does everything perfectly, and then you have the bad child that is always acting out, and they're so used to being able to get attention because they're acting out. But the good child, you're so used to them doing everything so perfectly that you don't put that attention into what they're doing still, because that's that then becomes expectation. So then that child that's always acting in a negative pattern, they're always getting that attention, even if it's bad attention, you're still paying attention to them. It's just a very weird, differing situation between the two.
I was also thinking along the lines of when people put themselves in, they're always talking about why me? How come this always happens to me? That stuff never happens for me, blah, 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 blah. And they constantly, let's say social media, because it's such a big platform and people are constantly putting their life on basically pay-per-view, right? And they're going down this rabbit hole of victimhood, and they're loud and they won't be talked out of it. They're just constant diarrhea of the mouth.
I'm not gonna lie, that was definitely me. I think before we met was a huge part of my life.
Were you aware?
There was a lot of negative going on, but I wasn't fully aware of like the cycle of victimhood. It was just life can't get better, but that's also with a low self-esteem. So like you have a really low self-esteem and you're just like, it's not gonna, nothing's
this isn't fair, you know, this always happens, and and you don't realize that it's just diarrhea of the mouth after a while. And your friends, what if your friends constantly did they pour out and like say, hey, they're constantly giving you support and pat on the back, maybe is that a reason why you do it?
I didn't have friends, Nicole. No, I also had my son young, so that's kind of like when you have a kid young, you don't really connect with people anymore because unless you meet someone who doesn't have a kid or who also has a kid who's around your age. So I think it was kind of, but I think it was kind of the mixture of I was socially unconnected. I was in a relationship that wasn't working out and didn't really give me that internal support. So there was that support system. But also speaking from another perspective of having someone in my life, it's more of like, it was kind of like another mom to me for a while. They do that a lot. And I notice a lot of people are like, oh my God, are you okay? How is it doing? Like they'll check in, other people will check in on them after they say, you know, this is horrible. And that's always my favorite thing is when they say something, but it's so vague that everyone jumps in. Like
they want attention. They're trying to get that. It's like,
so I can see from that standpoint too, because you have all those people checking in on you. You just want to feel like loved. I think it's like more of a connection of trying to feel love, and that's the way. It's like, you know, everything's horrible, and then you have all those empathetic people coming towards you, trying to like fix your problem, but it's never solved, and it just turns into a continuous cycle down the line.
That's interesting. Now, what about the people that sit there and they say, you know, if you're not there at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best type of people? Do you feel that people should stick with you thin and thin when you're constantly like, you can't get yourself out of it, even though you're doing it for years?
Yeah, no. I think that's also another phase of life where you'll start finding confidence. Some people will start finding confidence, and there'll be like that new sense of attitude. I mean, I've noticed there's a lot of ways to get stuck in different patterns. I feel like that's one of them, like where it's, I'm just me. Like I don't have to grow. I don't have to change anything. I'm just me. So this is how I am. If you don't like it, then
leave.
No.
Yeah,
you can leave.
As is, okay, on the package. Boom.
I feel like that does then open the doors for not growing, and then not taking responsibility, and then it's a slippery slope into killing your security when people are like, your sense of security in yourself, because people will be like, you know, you shouldn't behave this way. It's not
healthy.
Listen, Lisa, you're like 50. Like we got to start learning empathy now and compassion. And then starts that line again.
That brings me to okay, so tangent. There was, I think it was at your house, there was a lady who was, I think she was in her 50s, 40s, 50s. And, you know, it was what was me. It was that victimhood mentality. And again, we're trying to be compassionate. We're empathetic and understand crap happens, man. And everybody's got their traumas and their pains and whatnot that they're all trying to tackle. And she was riddled with physical issues. And
we're talking about the same person. Yeah.
Okay, then yes. And I had a full conversation with her, and she was really kind of getting in like, oh yeah. And I was like, well, listen, you know, intuitively, this is going on, this is going on, this is going on, this. Oh yeah. I said, well, you need to look at yourself in the mirror and do some reflection work. Oh, I can't do that.
No.
I said, but you want to get better, right? Well, yeah, but nobody wants to help me, and this, that, and the other. My doctor said this, and then by the end of this, I'm going to die, and da, 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 da. And I'm just like, but you need to start doing the work for it. That's the problem, is that you're refusing to look at yourself in the mirror. Well, I can't do that. Okay, can you talk to anybody? No, I can't talk to anybody. Is there somebody that you can talk to that's non-biased, like a therapist? I was trying to lead towards a therapist, and she's like, oh, I can't tell anybody about this. I'm like, okay, well, first you got to open up to at least yourself. That's first and foremost. And I understand that some things might be so traumatic that you can't even face the music. But at 50 years old, I hate to tell you, it's not going to get better unless you do something different. You know, fine line between genius and insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over, you know, complaining your life is worthless, your victimhood, and you're just constantly in pain and this, that, and the other. And I get it. There are people that have to go through the ringer and they're not happy. And I get it. You're in pain all the time, but you have to look at yourself first. That's where it starts. That is where you're going to start lifting off some of the pain. And I will tell you, in Psychology 101, and I've said this before, the number one reason for all psychoses is stress. What is stress? It's mental and it's physical. Or I'm sorry, it's mental and it's an emotional. It's not physical. It's physical last.
Yes, leads to physical.
All causes of pain is some form of stress. So we got to peel back layers. So regardless, I was just curious. That was an interesting little tangent that we went on.
Yeah, that's the same person, but that also adds to a lot of people that are going through that will also then turn their attention to other people, and they'll spew their
negativity. Yeah.
Which,
well,
again, I was kind of like,
guilty. I'm guilty. I've done it. And I think awareness is half the battle.
Yes.
When you catch yourself, like when I had postpartum twice, it was almost like a switch went off and I couldn't stop. I was just like, this sucks, that sucks, blah, 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 blah. Well, this, how's your day? Well, it could be better because blah, 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 blah. And I just kept saying, I'm a realist, right? No. It was like up, positive, negative. And I just kept going. And until you get to a point where you realize or are aware of your actions, you can't take any actions. So tell us your stories. When did you realize that you potentially are, going through a negative phase in your life? Maybe perhaps you also share an experience like Nikki, like you just felt like you wanted to connect with other people and you needed that attention in some way, shape, or form. Let us know from your perspective, because it's really good to know from human to human that, we all experience some form of this type of feeling, Like, subscribe, comment,